Welcome to the Witchy Work Wishes podcast, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. Welcome to Witchy Work Wishes and to a truly enchanted episode for our Fae and Fairy theme of April. Today we are stepping into the realm of glimmering lights, whispering trees, and ancient secrets. We are walking between the worlds and talking all things Fae. And I invite you to walk the liminal path with me as we explore who they really are, their roots in folklore, and the mystery of their liminal energy and their many faces, from trickster spirits to elemental allies. We'll talk about how witches like us build respectful, reciprocal relationships with the Fae and what lessons they offer us through beauty, chaos, and transformation. Oh, and we are not skipping the warnings. I will be sharing some, cautionary tales too, because the Fae are just as much teachers as they are tricksters. But first, some general witchy work wishes, housekeeping notes. I have some reviews. Thank you to everyone who has sent me notes. But I do have some reviews now to add to the website, which I'm working on as we speak. These are specific reviews to the Moon Phase gummies on the store page. The Moon Phase gummies are a delicious way to, kind of soften the edges of your day and slip into a gentler rhythm. These aren't just any gummies though, you guys. They are water soluble, which means they act fast, moving through your system with ease and intention. Each one is dosed with just the right amount of THC. Both the new moon lemon and the full moon mixed berry have 5 milligrams in each gummy, making them a perfect evening ritual for witches or anyone who wants to relax without losing their clarity. This is a great substitute for alcohol if that is how you normally wind down. And whether you're journaling under the stars, pulling a few cards, or just curling up with your familiar in a blanket, these gummies are sweet little spells for stillness and restoration. If you have not yet tried them, you can order directly from the Witchy Work Wishes website, but I'm super excited to add some reviews on them. Also in the store now, but not totally ready yet, is the Hecate sourdough starter. I am just working on the packaging and the overnight shipping options, but that starter, infused with all of the amazing fall Hecate energy I was gifted, should be available soon. Now, if you have been crackling along with me here on Witchy Work Wishes, I have got a cauldron full of extra goodies waiting for you over on Patreon. Think of it as our secret magical clubhouse. Only instead of a tree house, it's brimming with spells and potions and journal prompts and oracle card readings, witchy business wisdom, and, some behind the scenes enchantments that you will not hear anywhere else. If you want early access to the episodes, I've got exclusive worksheets to your work magic at the office, and also a little monthly motivation from your favorite witchy business coach. Maybe even some Moon Garden chicken content from Hearth and Hen. Well, it's all there. It's all brewing over with our Patreon family. Your memberships and support really do keep this podcast spellbound and thriving, and lets me keep creating magical tools for you to use in your work, in your witchcraft, and your everyday rituals. And this month, our April card draw is here, and we are soaring high with the Eagle Spirit, tapping into, that big picture clarity, some bold moves, and element of air energy to, kind of clear out the cobwebs and see our work and our magic from like a higher perspective. There's a worksheet packed with journal prompts, herbal allies, a custom tea blend, a spell to actually help you, follow through on the inspiration the Eagle Spirit brings. So spread your wings, ride the winds of change, and I will meet you over there in our Patreon family with teas, spells, and a whole lot of sparkle. Okay, now before we step into the mist and mystery of today's fairy-filled episode, I do want to take a quick moment to share something I've been quietly building one stone, seed, and feather at a time. It's called Hearth and Hen, and it is the newest magical branch growing out of the Witchy Work Wishes world. Hearth and Hen is where the kitchen witch meets the moon gardener meets the home and hearth witch, where clucking hens become feathered familiars, and where the rhythm of nature slows us down enough to remember what magic really feels like. This isn't just about raising backyard chickens, though you will meet my future flock, watch the coop transformation, and get to follow along, with all of their little antics. But it's also about creating a sacred space in the everyday. So I'm talking about, planting herbs under moonlight and crafting protection spells for us and our hens, blessing our gardens with fairy offerings, and even reading a spell or story while, the little chickens and ladies cluck around the backyard. Hearth and Hen is where I'm letting magic just kind of root itself in the land that I live on. And I want you to come along. I would love for you to join me on the journey. Now, if you've ever dreamed of combining your witchcraft practice with like a little homestead softness, or if you feel your magic stirring, like when you touch the soil, when you speak to the wind, or hear a hen's gentle chatter, you're already a part of this energy. So keep your eyes out for the Hearth and Hen launch. It is scheduled for this fall, but the journey has already begun, and the blog on the Witchy Work Wishes website is tracking the progress along the way. And the Fae, right? I have a feeling they'll be watching from the hedgerow, curious and amused as they always are. Okay, speaking of Fae, the wild and wondrous Fae themselves. Today we are exploring the magic, mischief, and sacred lessons that they carry between the worlds. Why today, right? Why is April filled with the Fae and fairies and the magic of walking between the worlds? It's all because Beltane, really. Beltane is coming up, and each week we get closer to our May 1st celebration. Beltane is not a quiet Sabbath. It doesn't come in hushed shadows or subtle little whispers. It really arrives in bloom and blaze, dancing barefoot through the grass with flowers in its hair and smoke curling from its fingertips. It's a celebration of life force, of sacred union, of fire and fertility, and honestly everything that awakens when spring ripens into summer. And where there is such wild, unbridled energy, there are the Fae. More than any other Sabbath. Well, maybe not Samhain, right? It's shadow twin and close second, but Beltane is when the Fae are closest to us. The veil between our world and theirs thins, not with darkness, but with heat and joy. Now it is said that on Beltane night, fairy paths open wide, and the folk of the hollow hills walk the lands freely, watching us, like dancing near us, perhaps even joining our celebrations if we're lucky or bold. Now, the Fae are creatures of nature's extremes, not just its beauty, but its chaos, its hunger, its constant transformation. And Beltane, well, Beltane is nature at its peak seduction, if you will. Like the land is fertile, the flowers are opening, the sun is growing strong. It's the sacred midpoint between spring equinox and the summer solstice. A moment just bursting with energy, sexuality, creativity, and joy. And you know what? The Fae are drawn to this, to the laughter, to the offerings left in hedgerows and hanging from maypoles, to the songs sung by firelight and the hands held beneath the stars. Now, in ancient Celtic traditions, Beltane was also a time to protect against the mischief and meddling of the Fae. People would leap fires to purify themselves and their homes. They would herd their livestock between twin bonfires for protection and leave offerings at the edge of their property to keep the boundary between the worlds respected. But just as often, Beltane was a time to welcome the Fae through dance and flowers, through whispered songs and honey-sweet gifts. Now, not all Fae are mischievous or malevolent. Many are nature spirits in their purest form. And Beltane is a time when they are most likely to respond, to appear, to form connections, especially with witches who honor the land. So whether you are curious, cautious, or already dancing in the moonlight with your fairy kin, this episode is filled with story, spell work, and sacred connection. So light a candle, pour a little milk and honey, and then join me for a very special journey between the worlds. I remember the first time I felt them, not saw, but felt. Like the hairs on my arm rose with no breeze, the earth stilled beneath my bare feet, and the shadows along the tree-lined just shimmered with a pulse of something ancient. That was the moment I knew. I knew the Fae were real. And not just real, but like watching and listening and existing in the quiet folds of the world where few dare to look. Speak of the Fae is to step into a realm where certainty just kind of dissolves and story takes root. Who or what are they? Even now, after years of people and cultures honoring their ways and learning their lore, I think the question is answered with both reverence and caution. The Fae, or fairies as some like to call them, have woven their way through countless cultures. In the Celtic lands where my own bloodline coils like mist over green hills, they are the Ashi. This is spelled Aossi. And I believe it is pronounced Eshi, Eshi. Let's say Eshi. I know in the past I have definitely pronounced it incorrectly, and I'm pretty sure I've said like Aoshi or something like that, but it is in fact pronounced Eshi. It comes from Irish mythology and refers to like the people of the mounds. The Aos, ish, is basically a meaning of the people. And then the Si, I think it's also written out as Sidhe, refers to the fairy mounds or the hills believed to be their homes. Now, you might hear it spoken differently in Irish Gaelic dialect, but Eshi is the commonly accepted, I think, and most accessible pronunciation in our English-speaking, magical, and folklore communities. Celtic legend says basically that the Ashi are descendants of ancient gods driven underground by the coming of man. Now, others say they are elemental spirits, the living breath of fire, water, air, and earth, given form and mischief. Now, with the Fae, there are two courts, at least in the tales most familiar to Western witches like myself. The Seelie and the Unseelie. Now, the Seelie are said to be the light Fae. They are more inclined towards playfulness and aid, though their kindness still demands caution. The Unseelie, on the other hand, are wild, fierce, and far less forgiving. But labeling them like good or evil is definitely a mistake that I think humans often make. The Fae do not bend to our moral frameworks. They exist beyond them. Then there are the tricksters, the shapeshifters, the ones who wear beauty like a mask. One moment they appear as willowy beings glowing with starlight, and then the next they are crouched in the dark corners of the forest and bartering riddles and bargains with sharp teeth beyond their smiles. All right, so you might ask the first question of like, where do they come from? Well, guess what? The answer is everywhere. The Celtic fairies dwell in hollow hills and misty glens. In Scandinavia, they are, beings of the forest with tails hidden beneath their skirts. In the Slavic Domovio, they are protectors of hearth and home, share whispers with their kin among the Fae. Even in the Americas, though, there are legends, that speak of like little people, guardians of wild places, and tricksters and teachers alike. So it seems, I think overall, humanity has always known there is something else, something other that dwells in the in-between, that does in fact walk between the worlds. Now, some scholars have called them spirits of the dead, a belief reflected in Samhain traditions for sure, where, fairy and ancestors walk side by side. Others insist they are nature spirits. They are guardians of the streams and stone circles and storm clouds. And then there are others who feel they're, something entirely different, like beings of the liminal. They're not dead, they're not alive, they're not gods, but they're not ghosts. They're something in between. I think that overall is going to be the key word with the Fae. Just think liminal. They are dusk, not day or night. They are the edge of the forest, the space between a dream and waking up. They belong to the thresholds where, ocean kisses land, where fog blurs the path, where the veil between the worlds is thin. This is why witches like me are drawn to them. We too work in liminal spaces between the mundane and the magical, between what is and what could be. And it's in that shared twilight that I have glimpsed the Fae in moonlit circles and heard their laughter in the rustling of the leaves. They're not always kind, and they are never tame, but for me, they are real. And when I leave offerings like honey, milk, silver coins buried under foxglove, I do not do so out of fear. I do it out of respect, because in a world so eager to draw borders and build walls, the Fae remind us, well, they remind me of the beauty and danger of what exists beyond the edge. Now, my relationship with the Fae is not one out of command, but of careful communion, like approaching a wild animal. It is a dance of mutual respect, intuition, and subtle exchanges. As a witch, I do not seek to tame them or really ask for favors without offering something in return. I pay attention to the signs, circles of mushrooms, the sudden silence of birds, a dream that lingers just a little too long. The Fae are not tools in my craft. They really are allies when they choose to be, and certainly tricksters when they are not. I am learning their rhythms and their warnings, and I am starting to understand that their presence is both a blessing and a test. So working with the Fae demands that I stay rooted in humility, in curiosity, and in wonder. Ours is a relationship of mirrors. Like, I see parts of myself in their wildness, their defiance of structure, and their devotion to beauty and chaos in equal measure. All right, let's talk about what I think the Fae can teach us and some do's and don'ts of working with them. I do want to start by saying that I don't think the Fae are here to make life easier. They are here to make it truer, but not really easier. In the minimal years, I have opened myself up to, their world, sometimes with cautious offerings, other times just stumbling, honestly, unwittingly into their wild games. I've come to see them less as mythical curiosities and more as quiet, sometimes chaotic, teachers. Not in the structured way that we humans often seek, though, but in whispers, in riddles, in sudden wins and, unexpected lessons. The Fae, for I think those willing to listen, I believe have much to teach us. First, they do teach us to move with the earth, not against it. The Fae live within the heartbeat of nature's cycles. I feel them most when the veil is thin, for sure, like on Beltane mornings that are just heavy with dew, or on Samhain nights when the air crackles with memory. They don't force the blooming of flowers or hold back the frost. Like, they move with it. They remind me that my magic, too, is not about controlling time, but weaving myself into its rhythm. The waxing and waning of the moon, the hush of winter, the riot of summer, they are all sacred stages in a play that the Fae know by heart. And when I align myself with these seasons, I don't just hear them more clearly. Like, I feel like one of them. This is, by far, for me, one of the most attractive parts of working with them. And again, I am new to this arena, but as of now, this is the strongest pull that I have, personally, with the Fae. Now, the Fae also pull us deeper into the unseen. They ask us to trust our instincts, our inner knowing, even when logic says otherwise. Their world is hidden not because it's false, but because it does require feeling, not proving. And as magical as I know myself to be, I think that is hard. It's hard for me. It's hard for all of us. Maybe you have overcome it entirely, but honestly, I have not. Many times I fall back on, oh yeah, prove it, show me. But I have had enough times where that very call to action has actually happened. Of frickin' prove it. It has happened and allowed me to be more open to the unseen in other areas. When I tune into those subtle shifts in energy, like that prickle on your neck, the flicker of a shadow just outside our vision. Like, I'm not imagining things. I'm being invited to see more deeply. The Fae, I don't know, they just kind of stretch those boundaries, I think, of what we call real. They nudge open doors to the other world and remind us that magic isn't just found in our rituals. It's found in noticing. A dewdrop sparkling like a crystal. A crow calling 3 times at dusk. A dream that leaves a silver thread in your chest when you wake up. Like, I believe these are signs. And if you follow them, they might just lead you to wonder. Now, of course, not all of the Fae's lessons are gentle, right? The Fae are tricksters, and their energy of mischief is both maddening and deeply sacred. They steal time. They move your keys. They turn left when you're sure the path was right. But through it all, they typically ask one thing. Can you adapt? Can you transform? They are masters of shapeshifting, of illusion, of play. And their trickery often shows me where I am stuck, where I'm just a little too rigid, too controlling, too sure of how things, quote unquote, should be. When I surrender to their chaos, something just kind of cracks open in me. Like, old beliefs dissolve, new ideas shimmer to the surface, and I grow. Not in spite of their mischief, but because of it. Now, I think it is generally widely understood that there are going to be some set of rules in every realm. And when it comes to the Fae, those rules are older than language. They are etched into the roots of trees and the hush of twilight. And I am learning that working with the Fae is less about, like control and more about relationship. One built on respect, intuition, and a healthy dose of wariness. They may dazzle us with beauty or charm us with, their riddles, but make no mistake. They are not creatures to take lightly. To walk their path is to walk a line between wondering and warning. All right, let's talk about some do's and don'ts. Do offer with intention. Offerings are sacred when they are made with sincerity. The Fae are drawn to beauty, to sweetness, to the shimmer of things we may often overlook. I leave them milk in little stone bowls tucked beneath like an elder tree, or a little drizzle of honey on a fallen leaf, or honestly, just a little marble, a button, something small that is polished by time. Shiny objects do seem to please them, especially if they are gifted with joy, not like obligation. I never offer plastic or salt, and I never give them what I wouldn't honestly treasure myself. These gestures are not bribes or payments. They are just invitations. They say, hey, I see you. I honor your presence. All right, let's do a don't. Do not ever say thank you. That is one of the first things I got in researching the Fae years back. And it seems to be one of the biggest no-nos still today. This is one of those strange, counterintuitive truths. Now, in our world, thank you is polite. In theirs, though, it is known to be more of an insult, or worse, a contract. In many traditions, especially among the old Celtic paths, saying thank you implies that you owe them something, or that you've done them a service. But the Fae don't operate in the currency of favors and debts the way that we do. Instead of speaking those words, I nod, I bow slightly, or I leave another offering, the next day. Gratitude to them, I think, is going to be more shown through action, not through language that binds. Okay, another do is to open your heart, but, guard it. So when I connect with the Fae, I do so with openness, but I'm not naive. They are not human. Their ways are not our ways. They exist in the liminal, and their moral compass points to something I think more wild than right or wrong. So curiosity is essential. Caution is survival. When I enter their spaces, I do so slowly. I tend to listen more than I speak, and then I ask, may I, before I step into their circles or even take a single flower from a place that feels heavy with their energy. And I always protect my own energy. carrying iron or like Rowan on me, drawing wards before I go to sleep, or setting clear intentions before any, magical working. Let's see, another don't. I would say don't take what isn't freely given. This is perhaps only second to don't say thank you. I think it is known that the Fae despise thieves. Pick a flower from a fairy grove without asking, and you may find your dreams unsettled for weeks. Take a shiny trinket left on a mossy stump, and you might begin to lose your own things, keys, time, clarity, something. Their gifts, I think, when offered, are powerful. But if it isn't clearly given, I don't think it's yours to take. Now, in my craft, I've learned to wait. If I'm meant to receive something, I think it will come with a sign, like a feather placed on my path 3 days in a row, or a dream that repeats with a shimmer of silver light. Or, that gut feeling, that gut knowing feeling that vibrates in my bones. Now, working with the Fae isn't a casual practice. This really is a sacred dance. Sometimes it's playful, and sometimes it's a little perilous, but always alive with magic. So if you walk their path, I would just say, do so gently, with respect, with humility, and with the awareness that they owe you nothing. And in that nothingness is a mystery worth devoting a lifetime to. Now, there are quite a few more experiential, do's and don'ts when it comes to working with the Fae. Some are going to come from folklore, some from our modern witchcraft practices, and then others are just kind of gathered from patterns observed over time by those who walk that liminal path. Do honor boundaries and sacred spaces. Fairy rings, like those mushroom circles, ancient trees, wells, foggy hillsides, they are all considered fairy places. I would say tread carefully. Ask permission before entering or sitting, and leave the space exactly as you found it. Do observe and listen more than you speak. The Fae are keen observers and appreciate those who notice the subtle. So take time to attune to the natural world. They reveal themselves to those who are still, quiet, and respectful. Do keep your word. If you make a promise or set an intention with the Fae, keep it. They take oaths seriously, and breaking a vow, even unintentionally, can sour the relationship or even invite trickery. Do use natural offerings. So in addition to milk, honey, and shiny objects, I think seasonal fruits, flower petals, sweet breads, and even music or poetry can be considered beautiful gifts to the Fae. And do cleanse and protect your energy regularly. Not all Fae are malicious, but many are mischievous. So using protective herbs like mugwort, rue, rowan, or vervain, drawing wards, or even wearing, iron jewelry can help keep your energy in balance. Now, don't eat or drink anything offered by them. Now, in many legends, accepting fairy food traps you in their realm or creates a tie that binds you to their will. So if offered something in a dream or a vision, it is probably best to politely decline. Don't try to summon or command them. The Fae are not spirit guides or familiars. They are not here to do our bidding. So approaching them as equals or even slightly above us in the hierarchy is going to be more respectful. Don't assume all Fae are the same. Each Fae being is unique. So treat them as individuals and don't expect seelie behavior from an unseelie spirit. The Fae of forests are going to differ from those of water or stone, so always feel out the energy first. And don't accept gifts without discernment. Just like with the food I mentioned, Fae gifts are not always free. So accepting a gift may imply a contract, or now you owe something in return. So always use your intuition and check for any strings attached. And don't disrespect the land or the dead. Many Fae are connected to the spirits of the place, and in some traditions, even the ancestors. So littering, disrespecting folklore, or disturbing burial sites may cause disapproval. Okay, now we have two options. Let's say after hearing all of this so far, you're like, Let's go, Charlene. I am all in. What can I do to start working with the Fae and fairies? Well, let's talk about that one first. Working with the Fae is certainly not for the faint of heart or for the careless. Their presence in your life can be a blessing, a trick, or a strange and beautiful storm all at the same time. So over the few short years in understanding them and beginning to work with them myself, I've come to recognize, the difference between like calling them and then accidentally catching their attention. And trust me, those are two very different things. Now, some witches seek the Fae with longing in their hearts and sugar in their pockets, right? Others may feel the Fae kind of creeping close without ever asking. I've been both. Sometimes I invite them in with care, and sometimes they just simply arrive unannounced, curious, mischievous, or testing. Now, if you're wondering whether the Fae are near, or if you are feeling a strange pull that you just can't quite name, there are some signs, like little whispers in the corners of your world. The first thing is to notice movement without explanation. Keys vanish and reappear in strange places. Jewelry falls behind your furniture that you've never touched. Objects shift ever so slightly, like something small has been walking through your home with curious hands. Next, watch the lights. Candles may flicker or bulbs, pulse strangely, especially when you're talking about them or thinking magical thoughts. It's not quite like a haunting, but it kind of hums with that same uncanny energy. Nature, too, begins to feel just a little different. Like you might walk into your own backyard and suddenly sense a hush in the air, as if the trees are holding their breath. You've seen it when birds fall silent, right? Wind moves only through the leaves at your feet, or you feel the hairs just rise up on your arms and there is no cold wind. I think that's how the Fae announce themselves, like not with a bang, but with a pause. Then there's also that feeling of just like, oh my gosh, I'm being watched. A subtle pressure behind your eyes, or like a little glimmer of light just out of your reach. You might see a shadow flit between, trees, or a tiny sparkle in the corner of your vision, gone before you could fully look. Don't dismiss these things. The Fae live in the peripheral, and that's where they'll likely stay unless invited in. If your spirit calls to, their world and you feel, this is it, I'm ready, there are some gentle, respectful ways to extend your hand. Start by tending to like a wild space, a little garden, a mossy corner, like a little patch of untouched weeds. These are sacred to them. Plant flowers that they favor: foxglove, primrose, hawthorn, thyme. Leave offerings like cream and honey, sweetbread, or those shiny items. And speak aloud with warmth, but not neediness. Let them know like they're welcome if they choose. Create a threshold too. Fae love boundaries between worlds, between day and night, between what is seen and what is unseen. So you might place a fairy door in your home, a stone circle in your garden, or keep a jar of moon water on your altar. These are all little Fae signs that say, hey, I honor the in-between. I would never invite them blindly, though. Setting boundaries as clear as invitations is going to be just as important. You may say aloud, only those with kind intent may pass. Or draw a sigil of protection over your windows and doors. The Fae respect strength. They test those who seem unsure, though. Okay, let's say on the other hand, after listening to this episode so far, you are like, Charlene, no, I do not want to work with the Fae or the fairies. I get it. I totally understand. Maybe the flickering lights and misplaced objects feel more like disruption than enchantment. That's valid, and it's wise to know how to set distance without offense. First, stop leaving offerings, or honestly, just don't even start, right? It might sound simple, but if you've opened a door, stop holding it open. Remove signs of invitation. Cleanse the space with smoke or water, and politely, firmly say, I thank you for your visit, but now I close this path. Use protective herbs and symbols. Hang iron bells or, those iron horseshoes by your doors. Carry rowan, salt, or vervain. Mark your threshold with chalk or oil. Like, these aren't meant to harm the fae. They're more like polite little no trespassing signs. And above all, I would not mock or dismiss. So even if you are closing the door, do so with reverence. The fae have long memories, and disdain can invite attention just as much as curiosity can. Either way, though, whether you're weaving wildflower crowns to leave at the forest's edge, or you're sleeping with iron beneath your bed, the fae can teach us the importance of being clear with our intent. Invitation or avoidance both require attention, ritual, and care. And after all, right, once the veil begins to shimmer, it's pretty hard to pretend that we don't see it anymore. All right, let's do some fae and fairy magic and rituals. The first one I have is to help us connect to this other world. It has helped me, so I hope it can help you too. And it is a fairy sight meditation. It's a visualization technique to actually connect with the fae. And I'll walk through the steps now, but come back if you can't actually, do them while this episode is playing. You can do it later when you are in the right place. So I would begin by finding a quiet place, preferably if you can be outside, be in nature where they are, or somewhere where you can maybe just imagine it clearly. But sit comfortably with your spine super stretched out and tall. Let your hands rest gently on your knees or in your lap. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. Let the breath slow you down. Let it soften you. Let it open you up. Inhale deeply and exhale fully. Again, inhale and exhale. One more breath, and as you exhale on the third time, imagine yourself just sinking into the earth, just a little bit. Grounded. You're held. You are safe. Now begin to see in your mind's eye a forest path. You know, the kind that calls to you in dreams? Dappled light spills through tall trees overhead. You hear birds and water, and you hear the whisper of the wind through leaves. Everything feels slightly enchanted, like the air hums with possibility. Now walk slowly down this path. With every step, the colors around you grow brighter. The greens so green, they almost glow. The flowers with petals that seem to just shimmer. And the moss beneath your feet feels alive, soft and inviting. Ahead, the path leads to a clearing. In the center is a small ring of mushrooms, stones, and tiny wildflowers. A fairy ring. You pause at its edge, knowing you are on the threshold of something sacred. You place your hand gently over your heart. Now say silently or aloud, "With respect and wonder, I ask to see the fairy sight. Let me glimpse what lies between the worlds. Let me sense the spirits of earth, air, fire, and water. Let me remember how to feel magic again." As you speak, imagine a gentle golden light moving from your heart to your forehead. It pulses at your brow, opening your inner eye. You may begin to feel a shift, like a soft buzzing, a sparkling energy, or a sense that you are not alone. In your mind's eye, look again to the clearing. Perhaps now you see tiny glimmers, flickers of light, movement just at the edge of form. Maybe you hear laughter, faint music, or see a figure half hidden behind a tree. Don't force it. Simply observe. Let yourself feel the presence before you try to see it. A fairy sight is not about the eyes, it's about the knowing. If a being steps forward, bow your head slightly. Ask silently, "May I be in your presence?" And then listen with your whole being. Listen and feel the answer. You may receive a gift, right? A color, a word, a symbol. You may be shown a place in nature to visit or a plant to grow. Trust what you are given. It is a whisper that is meant only for you. When the moment feels complete, place your hand again over your heart. Say silently or aloud, I release this vision with gratitude and care. I will remember. I will return only if welcomed. And then begin to walk slowly back along the path. Let the golden light retreat from your brow, leaving only a soft warmth behind. The forest starts to fade. The clearing disappears, and you return to your body, to your breath, to this moment. Inhale deeply and exhale. Wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes, and when you're ready, open your eyes. All right, another option would be working between the worlds with our dream work. Now, this practice is obviously best done just before you go to sleep. So settle into your bed or your sacred resting space. Let the room be dim. You may wish to light a candle, maybe burn a little mugwort or lavender, or even place a crystal near your pillow. For this type of dream work, I would look at amethyst, moonstone, or labradorite. All three work beautifully for fairy dream work. For this one, though, close your eyes and let your body sink into softness. Just let go of the day and breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Again, in and out. With every breath, feel yourself drifting a little closer to the space between waking and dreaming. The threshold, the liminal, the place where the Fae love to dwell. Now begin to imagine a silver mist just kind of curling around you. It rises gently from beneath your bed, your sheets, your skin. And this is not just sleep, it's a portal. So see yourself walking through that silver mist, barefoot, cloaked in twilight. Ahead of you is a stone archway covered in ivy and night-blooming flowers. This is the gateway to the fairy dreaming realm. Step through only when you feel ready. On the other side, the world glows with moonlight. You are in a dream meadow that is lit by stars. Everything sparkles with a strange kind of magic. It's soft and it's alive. Like you feel it in your bones. Place your hand over your heart and say silently or aloud, I call to the fairy folk, those who whisper through dreams. If it is your will, guide me tonight with wisdom, wonder, or warning. Let me walk your paths with reverence and clarity. I ask for symbols, stories, and signs, and I will remember. Feel a breeze stir around you. It's playful, fragrant, it's charged with possibility. And in the distance, you hear some music, or the soft sound of wings, or maybe laughter that feels both old and innocent. Maybe you glimpse a flicker of light between the trees, or feel the brush of something unseen against your cheek. This is their way. The Fae speak in dreams, not always with words, but with symbols. A deer that watches you without blinking. A song that you just can't stop humming when you wake up. A golden key in your hand, though you never remember picking it up. These are the threads. Your dreams are the loom. Now, as the meadow begins to fade, wrap yourself up in the memory of it. Know that as you sleep tonight, you may visit this place again, or they may visit you. And then say silently or even aloud if you're awake enough, I am open to dreaming with the Fae. I will protect my spirit and honor what I receive. If this path is meant for me, let the dream guide unfold. Breathe deeply and return to your body. Feel the weight of the blankets, the shape of your breath. Drift into sleep slowly and know that your spirit is surrounded by protection and magic. When you wake, write anything down, even if it seems super silly or small. Colors, numbers, feelings, creatures, words, places. The Fae often are going to speak through like layers. What makes no sense today may sparkle with truth tomorrow. All right, both of those exercises are going to be great if you do in fact want to start working with the Fae and, test it out, see what happens. But how about some corporate Fae magic? Let's talk about how we can weave fairy energy into the fluorescent lit, cubicle-filled corporate worlds that most of us spend hours in without setting off alarms or making our co-workers super suspicious of glittering trails. Now, the Fae may be creatures of wild glens and, those dew-kissed woodlands, but that doesn't mean they won't follow us into the boardroom. They're curious like that, right? They are drawn to energy and rhythm and beauty and imbalance. Even in the heart of the modern office, surrounded by our blue lights and our buzzing printers, the Fae can dance through the cracks if we invite them with care. And honestly, sometimes they thrive in the chaos. Now, when I began inviting fairy energy into my workplace, be it at my home office or, the actual corporate world that I work in, I noticed some shifts. A forgotten idea suddenly sparked. A lost document reappeared. Meetings, they flowed more smoothly. And occasionally, there was some mischief. Because the Fae aren't here just to assist us. They're here to remind us that even under fluorescent lights, we are magical. All right, you want to invite them in? Here's what I would do. Create a tiny altar, or a fairy nook. It doesn't have to be obvious. A crystal, a tiny plant, a teacup of dried flowers, or a discreet charm tucked in your pencil holder. This can be a sacred space for Fae energy. Add a shiny coin, a dried rosebud, or even a drop of honey under a coaster, something beautiful and intentionally placed. I would leave small offerings of appreciation, right? You can leave tiny treats like a drop of cream in your coffee cup before pouring it out, or a few dried berries tucked into a desk drawer. Whisper a thank you without actually saying thank you, right? We don't want to do that. Something like, for those who walk unseen, may this sweet delight bring delight to you too. I would also bring in natural allies. A little sprig of rosemary on your desk, a sachet with lavender, mint, or thyme. Thyme is our fairy herb. These herbs not only ground your energy, but they create an aromatic, fairy-friendly vibe. And fairy energy is tied to the land, right? So bringing in little elements of nature into our office calls them in gently. And then work with intentions, not commands. So if you want fairy help, clarity, creative flow, protection from a toxic coworker, protection from a toxic client, ask, don't demand. Light a tea light if you're at home, or set a written intention in your planner. Let this project flow with inspiration and sparkle. And then watch for little nudges, not orders. And then honor their playful energy, right? Play music quietly. Fae love the fiddle and harp or, flute tones. Hang twinkly lights or keep something whimsical nearby. It could be a sticker, a feather, a toy, something. Even the smallest, tiniest dose of whimsy can say, hey, this space welcomes wonder. Now, let's be clear. Fae do not love rules. So if you bring them in, expect the unexpected. Lost files, rescheduled meetings, mysterious giggles from empty rooms. They're not malicious, just curious. To keep the relationship respectful at the office, I would say just don't blame them when tech fails unless you've broken a promise, right? You know it's coming. Don't offer if you're not prepared to honor it. Consistency definitely matters. And don't try to use them. Treat them as co-creators, not tools. Now, in our modern world, we often separate the sacred from the everyday, right? But the Fae remind us that it doesn't have to be that way. Magic can live in spreadsheets. Inspiration can be found in office plans. And you know what? You can bring wonder into even the most sterile of spaces if you're brave enough to let a little of the wild in. All right, now I have been working on a fairy spark spell for the office, and I would love to share it with you. This one will actually invite creativity, clarity, protection, and just a touch of whimsy into our workday. What we are going to need is some type of tiny jar. This could be a charm bag too, but you want it small enough to fit into a desk drawer or on a shelf. You're going to need a shiny object. Think about like a sequin, a button, a charm, or a coin. And then you're going to need a pinch of dried herbs. Me personally, for the one I'm doing, I'm going to focus mostly on thyme, but you could also add lavender, rosemary, and some mint in there too. I don't know if I do all four, but lavender certainly is that calm and focus. Rosemary is our clarity of memory. Thyme, that absolutely our fairy connection herb. And then mint is, the motivation and flow. Let's see, we're going to need a small slip of paper and a pen, and then a few drops of honey or some sugar crystals. You're also going to need a crystal like citrine, amethyst, or moonstone. Me, for the one I'm doing, I'm personally going to use a moonstone. Now, on the slip of paper, write a short spell phrase like, "With sparkle and grace, I call Fae light into this space. Let work flow clear with joy and play. May clever charm bless each day." And then fold it and place it in the jar or the charm bag if that's what you're using. Layer in your herbs, add your shiny object, do that touch of sugar or honey, whichever one you're using, and then add in your crystal. As you do, speak softly or whisper, "To those who dwell in secret sight, bless my task with fairy light. Bring laughter, luck, and gentle cheer, but only those with good may near." Then hold the jar or bag, between your palms. Imagine it glowing with golden green light like the, sunlight through forest leaves. Say something else just to kind of wrap it up. Sealed with kindness, respect, and charm, bring magic without mischief or harm. And then place it in your drawer, on your shelf, or tucked behind your computer monitor. You can refresh it every month with a new herb or an offering, especially during the full moon or, definitely our Sabbaths like Beltane or Samhain. Now, if you have invited the Fae and Fairies into the office and now things feel, like chaotic, you may need an optional fairy office boundary spell. And this is going to be good for those days when things feel especially out of control. For this, I would sprinkle a circle of salt water or, draw one energetically with your finger, but put it around your workspace and say something like, "Hey, this is my circle, bright and clear. Only peace and inspiration may enter here." All right, now I know I've mentioned salt a couple times here and iron. Let me explain real quick, at least what I know about it and why the Fae and Fairies do not like them. I believe it is pretty universally agreed upon when it comes to the Fae, they love beauty and they hate iron and salt. But why? All right, let's start with iron. Known in old folklore as cold iron, iron is one of the human world. It's heavy, industrial, it's forged in fire and force. Where the Fae are, creatures of nature. They're wild and liminal. Iron represents order, control, and like civilization. So it's everything they are not. Now, some legends say that iron cuts through the veil, between the worlds, severing the subtle threads that the Fae use to travel and communicate. Others believe it is because iron is so deeply associated with, human weaponry, the swords, nails, hammers. It's not just a metal, it's a symbol of harm. And to the Fae, iron feels violent, even when it's not being used, that way. I think that's why iron is often worn or carried for protection, not because it attacks the Fae, but because it keeps them at a respectful distance. So a ring of iron under your bed, a nail in your doorway, or a piece of, iron jewelry can be enough to signal that you are warding your space, not inviting it open. Now, salt is a different kind of power. It's a purifier for sure, right? It is a boundary setter. In countless magical traditions of ours, salt is used to cleanse, protect, and banish. It draws a pretty firm line between energies, which is exactly what the Fae do not want. They thrive in the, in-between, in the blurred, the liminal, the not quite. Salt is to definite. It's too clean. It disrupts the Fae's ability to slip between worlds, and it anchors energy where they'd rather, like let it flow. So while salt may be used in rituals to clear a space or seal a circle, using it near fairy altars or in places where you want fairy energy to flow freely can, feel to them like a firm, hey, do not enter sign. So if you're trying to invite the Fae, definitely avoid using iron or salt near their offerings or in your ritual tools. On the other hand, if you are feeling their energy is a little too strong, or if things are moving on their own, dreams are getting too strange, or your tech is just going haywire, it may be time to keep a little iron by your door and a sprinkle of salt at the corners of your home. As always with the Fae, though, it's not about fear, right? It's about respect and boundaries. The Fae are not all stardust and sweet songs. They are wild and strange. They are beautiful and sharp. For every whisper of fairy laughter in the hedgerow, there is a shadow in the story. The lesson hiding just beneath the glimmer. We tend to romanticize the Fae too much, which for me, I'll be honest, it's easy. I do think we might forget, though, the oldest truth. They teach us through experience and often through trickery. They are not evil, not by my understanding, but they are absolutely not tame. They do not see the world through the lens of human morality, and when they engage with us, they expect us to listen, observe, and learn. What if we don't? What if we don't respect, engage, listen, observe, and learn? Well, there is an old tale that I have heard of, and it's about a man who chopped down a tree in a fairy grove, ignoring the unease that crept through his bones. It was only a tree, he said, just wood. But that tree happened to be sacred. It was a place that the Fae had danced around for centuries. The story says that night, the man's tools went missing. His livestock became ill, and his dreams were filled with whispers that turned to screams. He, of course, tried to apologize, but it was too late. The lesson was clear. You do not take what you have not been given, especially in the wild places where magic sleeps. Now, in my own practice, I have seen this energy. Not a lot, but enough to understand. I once picked a handful of wildflowers near a stream only to feel like an immediate shiver, like I had taken more than I should. That night, of course, I couldn't sleep. My phone glitched. My spell work fell flat. And it wasn't until I returned to the spot and left a simple offering that my balance returned. The Fae often come as tricksters, not to hurt us, but to reveal our weaknesses. They are mirrors reflecting our arrogance, our assumptions, our unmet edges. There are tales of travelers led astray by fairy lights, wandering in circles through the woods, only to emerge hours, days, weeks later changed. Some say they aged. Some say they were touched by madness. Others with inspiration. The lesson? Well, how about not everything that glitters should be followed blindly? Not every invitation is for you. Sometimes the lesson is more subtle. A lost item that only reappears when you stop searching. A sudden burst of creativity that fizzles the moment you try to control it. I think the Fae teach us to trust the unseen, to surrender to, the strange rhythms of magic rather than trying to master it. Our fairy tales, both ancient and modern, carry a pretty common thread, and I think it's humility. The Fae are far more likely to bless the cautious dreamer than the bold conqueror. They reward those who ask permission, who offer before they take, who walk with reverence instead of demand. And in a world that, oh my goodness, right, it pushes us to hustle, to conquer, to claim, the Fae will push us in the opposite direction. I believe they slow us down. They ask us to feel, to wonder, to respect the quiet wisdom of wild places and forgotten paths. And their lessons aren't always gentle, but they are always meaningful. So if you find yourself dreaming of strange music, maybe you see flickers in the corners of your vision, or maybe you lose time in the forest. I would pause, breathe, and listen. You might be standing at the edge of a lesson, one that comes not with a lecture, but with starlight, silence, and a glint of something just beyond understanding. All right, I do have a fairy poem for us today and the moon update. We've got a full moon this weekend. I'm going to go grab those notes and I will be right back. All right, let's start with the poem because I had a lot of fun with this one. All right, in it goes. In a glade where moonlit kissed the dew, a fae and witch met, as old magic knew. One wore moss and laughter and light, the other wore shadow, stars, and insight. I dance with storms, the fae one said, and sing to mushrooms soft and red. I stir the skies, the witch replied, with spells I whisper to the tide. They circled close, then stepped away, for witches walk slow and the fae rarely stay. But something sparked an ancient thread between what's felt and what's unsaid. The witch gave time in a silver spoon, the fae gave feathers and a tune. No thank yous, no demands, no ties, just glimmers shared beneath the skies. Now when the wind hums strange and clear, the witch will know the fae are near. And when the stars forget their song, the fae will find where witches belong. For in the quiet where magic spun, the witch and fae are two, yet one. All right, let's see our beautiful moon this week. She is almost full. She is in her waxing gibbous towards the end phase. We will have the April full moon this weekend, though. Now, the April full moon is traditionally called a pink moon. And despite the name, it is not actually pink in color. The name comes from the blooming of wild ground phlox, which is one of the first widespread spring flowers in North America. This phlox blushes the landscape with soft pink hues around this time of year. So this full moon is a Libra moon. And if you know and love a Libra, you know it's all about balance with them and their sign. And how perfect to be talking about the balance between the two worlds and walking between them today. Now, if you are looking for a pink moon, full moon, fae ritual to do on this Saturday, I've gotcha. Let's do one together. This will help welcome some gentle fae energy, kind of awaken intuition, and help to plant magical intentions with the rising full moon and spring that we are having right now. And the building of our energy that is leading up to May 1st Beltane celebration that is just around the corner. Now, if you can't do it this Saturday, on the night of the April pink full moon, I would maybe do like Friday night or Sunday night, the day before, the day after. We really do want this done with the full moon energy though. What you're going to need is a small bowl of fresh or dried pink flowers. Think of like the phlox, the rose petals, cherry blossoms, anything local would be great here, but go for pink. You will also need a silver coin or some type of small shiny object. You're going to need just a little bit of honey and a little bit of milk and a candle. I definitely would go pink on the candle, but you could use, let's say like white or lavender even. You're also going to need a little bit of moon water, a tiny bell, and a quartz crystal. Sit outside if possible, or definitely near a window where that moonlight is visible, where the moon herself is visible. Lay your items in a small circle, or a spiral on the ground would be perfect, or by your altar. Light your candle and say something like, like under this blooming, blushing moon, I call to the spirits who stir with the tune. Fae of flower, root, and rain, step softly in this space again. Place the pink flowers in a small little mound. Add your shiny coin, whatever you got that was shiny, and your milk and your honey that is nearby. Close your eyes then and feel the light of the pink moon just like on your skin. And then imagine it blooming inside your third eye like a soft pink flower. And ask the Fae to send you a sign, either in a dream or a symbol or, something in the days ahead. Hold your hands over your heart and say, as the moon blooms, so too do I. Let fairy magic walk softly nearby. With joy, with beauty, and no demand, only wonder as nature planned. Blow out your candle and leave your offering outside overnight under the moonlight. And then the next day, bury the coin and the petals in the earth. Now, if you are looking for some journal prompts after you do this, I would think about things like, what parts of me are blooming right now? What signs of fairy energy have I noticed lately? How can I be a better steward of nature this spring? And, what playful or creative energy do I want to welcome? All right, my friends, my witchy work wishes family, April is here. And as we get ready for Beltane, as we step back across the veil and return from the glimmering edges of the fairy realms, I really hope you carry just a little bit of that enchantment with you, whether it's a sparkle in your eye, it's a sudden breeze that feels like a whisper. Oh, don't you love those? Maybe it's a renewed sense of wonder in the everyday. Remember though, working with the Fae isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking, I think, better questions. It's about curiosity, reverence, and the courage to honor the magic that lives in wild places and the magic that lives in you. If today's episode stirred something in your soul, I would love, love, love for you to share it with a friend, leave a review, or post a moment from your own fairy connection on social media and tag us in. Tag Witchy Work Wishes. It helps the magic just ripple through everyone and a tad bit further than we can even imagine. If you are craving more rituals, worksheets, behind-the-scenes spells, and exclusive meditations, you can always join me over on Patreon too. This really is where we get to dive even deeper into the witchy work of living a magical life. Until next time, keep your heart open, your herbs close, and your offerings sweet. The Fae are always listening. I hope you have a great rest of your week and weekend, and I will talk with you next week. Thank you for joining me today at Witchy Work Wishes, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. For more information and additional content, please visit me online at witchyworkwishes.com. If you want to send me a personal note, please email me at info@witchyworkwishes.com. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for Witchy Work Wishes.